Welcome back. This will be very short. I need to get some other stuff ready before I can go deeper into that. But that's what cover all your high idle. If you've seen one hang at 1800, 2000 RPMs, it's not idling, it's in part throttle. Uh, this will also cover some of the hanging idle that are very slow to return to the idle cells. 0.93 is where this TPS is set. That's its lowest point. So when the key is turned on, the computer will look at this voltage and call that the floor. And over here, it's not in this log, but over here it would put a 0 under relative. This is TP volts absolute, and this is TP volts relative. It's a modified. This goes up, it goes up with it. And if it goes up a couple of points, then it's going to kick itself into part throttle, and it's going to add acceleration enrichment. It's going to actually kick into the pre-position or hold position. That's the IAC duty cycle logged. It's idling about 48%. When the throttle's hit, it used to kick up several times in this one. It goes into that pre-position. It's about 60%. That's pretty common. And then pulse width modulation is why it's stepped down, jagged line. But this is it decaying back out. If anything happens to obstruct that, it'll hang up there indefinitely. This is the blanking window. It's a very small window that's ignored by the computers. The computer's watching that TPS relative. It's a very, very, very small window that it uses to kick itself into part throttle, acceleration enrichment, all that. It's going to set it up there really high. This is the lowest voltage that it calls good for TPS, 0.49 volts. The highest voltage, 1.22 volts. Anything in between there is good. Once it hits those, breaks any of those parameters, you'll get a check engine light. And so a lot of times it won't, but sometimes it will kick into that default voltage. And nobody knows how that's going to run until it does it, because it's a limp mode. Part throttle, that's the part throttle breakpoint there. Very, very small. Go to some of the reasons why they don't return back to idle quickly. Would be the TPS sensor here. You have 5-volt reference. The 5 volts comes in, it goes through the TPS, and depending on the throttle angle, it could be anywhere from 0 to almost 5 volts. Sent back to the computer, that voltage information is sent back, and that's where it makes its judgment as to the throttle angle. The crimps in these connectors goes bad, and even if you depend it from the connector, you still can't see it. Not necessarily. The reference circuits could be bad also. Sometimes it gets damaged. People remove this device and damage that splice. Also, you'll see a lot of insulation get cut on those two wires. Different people set the TPS voltage or checking it, and they don't bother to seal that back up. Moisture gets in it, runs down that cable and turns it green and blocks that signal. When that happens, you'll need to either rig up a way to keep a watch on that voltage from sitting in the driver's seat, or connect a scan tool, sit in the driver's seat, match the pedal, bring it up to 2,000, 2,500 RPMs, release your foot and watch it. See how quickly it falls back down. It should immediately return to, in this case, 0.93 or 0 TPS relative. If there's resistance in that wire, it can stick there for a good while, or it can just slowly walk its way back down. But that's something you have to be the same one watching the screen has to be the one operating the pedal, or you'll never see it. Idle air control motor, that's got a really bad connector too. It has no protection against moisture at all. You can look in the back of it and see the contacts. Water can leak into that, and that's a ground current going through this command coming from the computer. It's pulse width modulation. It has 12 volts on the backside. This sets your commanded duty cycles. The IAC valve can be clogged up with carbon. It could be bad. They just kind of bind and they return very slow. But more times than not, when you see somebody, I've had guys tell me I changed the IAC valve 5 times. Still does it. It's because of that wiring. It's not necessarily the IAC. We get a lot of bad parts now, but after a couple of them, you need to dig a little deeper, because all changing it's doing is keep unplugging that connector. It's making the pin fitment worse. Every single time you unplug it, put it back. Those spring contacts in any of these connectors, they're old, and they never were meant to be just unplugged and plugged back in over and over. When you get past maybe a dozen times, it really degrades quickly after that. So keep that in mind. Don't always blame the motor to change the part. It's going to be in these old harnesses. Now, the last thing I'll cover is the vehicle speed sensor. It develops a lot of the same kind of problems in the harness. It could be the sensor, but usually it's in the harness because it's under the car. When you come to a stop, it hangs up into the 10 miles per hour. It's hard to see on the speedometer because it doesn't read very clearly under about 10 miles an hour until it drops down to that 3 or 4 mile an hour level, depending on the calibration. It's going to hang up into the drive tables, which have a higher IAC position than the idle cells do. The base idle resets that get done, that should not be done unless you have a way to monitor the duty cycle, because that's all it's changing. The idle speed is commanded. All you're adjusting when you do that is the idle speed. And on the Ford IAC is kind of strange. It works good on the application, but it needs as much room to back up as it needs to go up. It's not usually a problem lifting up cold start when loads increase. It's not usually a problem going up. The problem is it needs somewhere to come back down, or you will create that hanging idle. So that doesn't get out of adjustment. It's done one time, matched to that new idle or the factory idle, whichever. So that's really asking for trouble if you go in and do that. Don't have a way to monitor it, or just feel like it's going to correct something. It's just going to lead to other problems. Well, that will cover some of the hanging idle and all of the high idle sticking at a high idle. The only thing that causes that is either just happens to the IAC valve sticks in the max position, which is not real common. It is common that it kicks itself into park throttle. That's really the only thing that causes it. It's not vacuum leaks. It's a mass airflow engine. It's not a MAP engine. Put some more together and get that out in the next day or two. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.